Well, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen struck a troubled tone on ABC's This Week on Sunday, warning that the chaos will ensue if the U.S. fails to raise the debt limit. Let's bring in Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman for the details. I mean, the drumbeat keeps growing, Rick, about how bad it's going to be. She's talked about June 1st as a potential date when the U.S. is going to run out, right, and not be able to continue to repay. Is there any movement in Washington following all of this?
Well, there's going to be a meeting tomorrow for anybody who thinks that's a big deal. President Biden is going to meet with Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Just to remind everybody, Republicans did pass in the House. They did pass a bill that would raise the debt ceiling in exchange for something like $4.5 trillion worth of spending cuts over a decade. Democrats who control the Senate say, no way, we're not going to do that. That would be way too much in spending cuts. So Biden has continually said, look, I'm not going to negotiate on spending cuts. We just need to raise the debt ceiling and then talk about spending cuts or other budgetary issues separately. So we're going to find out if we make any progress on this later this week. Republicans do seem to have the momentum at this point because they have passed a bill and Democrats have not passed a bill. Democrats have just said raise the debt ceiling and move on. So let's see what comes out of this meeting tomorrow.
Some unusual solutions to the debt ceiling crisis have gotten some new attention recently, Rick. Can you break that down for us?
Right. So what happens if Congress does not raise the debt ceiling and we actually get to the point where the Treasury cannot pay all of its bills? So people who are deep in the weeds on this point to the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. That's from 1868. And that amendment says the validity of the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned. So what does that mean? The reason that we have a debt ceiling in Congress is there was a law passed in 1917 that said there is a limit on how much the United States can borrow. And every time it hits that limit, Congress has to authorize a higher level of borrowing. So there's this thinking that the 14th Amendment trumps the 1917 law, and that if you actually were to challenge this, that the 1917 law might turn out to be unconstitutional. So how could you do this? This gets to the $1 trillion coin, which goes back to 2011 and 2013 when we were in a similar position. The theory is that the mint can produce this coin and the Federal Reserve would deposit it at the Treasury. And so the Treasury would have an extra $1 trillion. And so the debt limit wouldn't matter. That is a gimmick, and nobody knows how markets would react to that, which is why you've got Treasury Secretary Yellen and also Biden saying that we don't really want to do that. That doesn't seem like a good idea. But if it really came down to it, that is one option. And there are some serious people who say, let's give this a try.
Yeah, I find that quite amusing, that it's sort of wonky economists, some of whom at least are pointing to the mint the coin sort of movement. I don't know if movement's too strong a word. I mean, and we sort of joke about it, but I think some of the people who brought it up are quite serious.
I heard Peter Orszag, who was the former director of the Congressional Budget Office. He said this last week at the Milken Institute conference. He didn't say $1 trillion coin. He said he thinks the Biden administration should just ignore Congress and move on. So then you have to get to the question of, well, how exactly do you do that? And a huge factor is how would markets react? I mean, just imagine if you had the Biden administration Treasury Department basically creating money, avoiding or even in denial of what Congress is supposed to do which is authorize more borrowing. So that markets would probably hate that, but they might not hate it as much as an actual default on U.S. obligations.
That's fair.
Yeah, Yahoo Finance's own Rick Newman following.
I'm just the messenger, guys.
Oh, yes, we know, Rick, and you're tracking it very well. We appreciate it. The logistics are amazing on your front. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Bye.